Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV. It's October 7th, 2014. I'm Logan Burgess. To my right here is Cody Bills. Well, we saw corn and wheat continue higher in Chicago. Soybeans took a bit of a breather. Take a look at the iPad here. You can see where we closed out the session. Corn was up 8 3/4. Soybeans down 1 1/4. Chicago wheat showing some strength, up 15 1/4. Cody, once again, let's focus though on soybeans. We talked about this a lot on yesterday's show. We showed this chart here of the hourly chart with these trend lines drawn, and some things that you discussed yesterday really did come down the pipe today. Went up and tested that area where we gapped down lower on September 20th, unable though to maintain the rally.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I mean, I really think that this, the movement higher here that we saw yesterday and the movement higher here that we saw today intraday is really the makings of a short covering rally. I mean, earlier on in the trade, we tried to sell off, couldn't do that. When we went through the highs of the day, it did not take us very long before we went up and we retested that 950 and got right up to that gap. You know, I mentioned it yesterday. Those gaps typically provide either resistance or support. In this case, it was going to provide resistance as we were making a run at it, moving higher here in prices. It did provide resistance. We ended up closing off the day negative. You know, I'd be nervous here because fundamentally that can really that can be very sobering when you look at the fundamentals in soybeans. We have a USDA supply and demand report coming down on Friday. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to make a movement lower here, potentially retesting $9. But what are the fundamentals here, and would that support that kind of theory here that we could be moving lower?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Cody. You know, we have seen a sizable run up here yesterday, and in part for partly of today's action. But if you take a look here at the production estimates that the trade's looking for on Friday from the USDA, you can see here the middle column is what the USDA projected for production in September. The right column here is what the average analyst is looking for based on a poll conducted by Reuters, and you can see here pretty sizable revisions higher are expected for corn and soybeans in particular here, about 200 or I guess about 100 million bushels added to the corn production. Soybeans looking at around 60 million bushels, so pretty large there on a percentage basis. If we take a look at how that's going to affect U.S. ending stocks here, you can see that the trade's looking for higher U.S. ending stocks projected for corn and higher for wheat as well. Soybeans expected to be relatively unchanged, down just 3 million bushels, but keep in mind this is after the surprising September 1st grain stocks that we got out. That came in about 30 million bushels short. So what the trade's looking for right now is that we were 30 million bushels short coming out of the old crop, but production revisions in October are expected to just about make up that gap. All things told, I would expect a relatively negative report for soybeans, and with 472 million bushels expected in that report, if we get a number out there around 472 million bushels, I would expect that to weigh on the trade. Historically, when we see stocks to use like 472 number would imply, we do not see 940 on the board in Chicago. So for that reason, as you said, Cody, I think that if I was a producer of beans right now and I felt a little underprotected, I would look at putting on some sales before Friday. It's been a good run up. If you don't want to sell futures, maybe look at a put.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's very fair to say. When we look at weather, we do have a little bit more moisture moving throughout the Midwest here this week. In the 6 to 10 day forecast, looks like more precipitation throughout much of the grain belt. And then when you look at the 8 to 14 day, looks like a more wetter than average area in the northern plains as well as the eastern part of the grain belt. So it looks as though we could very well get some harvest delays. We're already running behind progress. Other than that, tomorrow we're going to have ethanol production and stocks report on Thursday. We're going to have export sales, and then Friday, USDA supply and demand. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, give us a call, 877-472-4607. For those of you that have taken a demo, give us a call. We'll give you a personal walkthrough. Make sure that the trading platform is customized to your own trading style. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you here on Wednesday.